Hello, my name is Tucker, and welcome to another OneTake DeckTech. I'm here today to talk about Florian, the Rotwood Harbinger, in the RtN season leading up to Nationals in Vegas in June. First of all, why am I even on Florian in this meta? So I actually went to Memphis about 3 weeks ago or so, and I played Ira in the Calling and the Battle Hardened, and I had a pretty mid time. There's a lot of aggro coin flips that didn't sit right with me. Maybe it's the type of player that I am. Maybe it's the game itself. Who's to say? But I came back from Memphis basically saying Ira is not it. Should have stuck with the needles or just jumped ship. So I need something that's more my style. I cannot learn Assassin like very last minute. So what is a deck that I know how to play that is also good in this meta? And so I went back to Florian. I don't think Jarl is fully there right now where I would like him to be, but I hope he gets there soon. In the meantime, Florian I think is easier to play than Jarl and is honestly better situated in the meta than Jarl, with a lot less hoop jumping and just more consistency. The other factor in this too is that when I was in Memphis, I casually ran into Mason from Richmond, Virginia in a side event. This is the singular only person to day 2 calling Memphis on Florian. So Mason was super nice. He was actually on Aurora because he just needed a break from the long grind. I'm of course on Ira, just looking for any outlet after doing pretty mid. And so I asked him politely to send me his list. He said, oh yeah, absolutely. And he sent me this exact list. This is exactly what Mason got day 2 in calling Memphis on. So I took this to my first RtN. I bubbled at 10th because I ran into a Decano at an unfortunate time. Is what it is, but it was a great starting point. So thank you again, Mason. If y'all know him, give him a big high five just for me as an extra thank you. So this is where I started with Florian in the RtN season. And this is where I've ended up. So it's mostly the same list. We will, of course, talk about the differences. But I just wanted to give a humongous shout out to Mason for helping me hit the ground running this season in the first place. Obviously, I had played Florian in the ProQuest season prior, so I had some knowledge on the deck. But after playing on Jarl, I felt very rusty on the deck. So it really just helped me skip like a week or 2 weeks of just getting back up to speed. Also want to shout out Simon Miller, one of my locals and my best friends, because he is also a Florian god. At that first RtN where I bubbled at 10th, he got second or first or split with my buddy Dylan in the finals. So Florian's awesome. There were definitely some matchups where I thought I knew what I was doing, and then he walked over and kind of slapped me silly and said, no, you got to board like this, you got to play it like this. Especially Prism, which I'll come back to in a bit. It's actually a really funny story. So thank you to Mason from Virginia. Thank you to my buddy Simon. And of course, thank you to the Blood Rush Fellows. It was a team effort getting me there as well. Not just in like getting the reps, but also in the mentality and the support and everything. I love my team and I appreciate them. So let's move on. Why Florian? How does he work? Let's say you've never seen this character before. How does Florian work? So it starts off with a hero ability that doesn't do anything for a while. It says if you have 8 or more Earth cards in your banish, then you essentially have Mordred Tide. You make 1 more aura anytime you would make an aura. So if you make a rune chant, now you're making 2 rune chants. If you make a might token, now you're making 2 might tokens, and so on. So he innately has this pattern of early game, I'm just going to play it slow. I'm going to block. Maybe get a little chip here. I'm going to observe what you're doing, kind of read your deck for a few turns to get a feel for how you play and how your deck plays. And I'm just going to sit back and block a lot. Then mid to late game, we're going to sort of shift that perspective, and I'm going to start wailing on you now that I am a math machine. So his is the core of the decompose mechanic here. We're just trying to fill our grave for a few turns, banish those as fast as possible, come online, and just overwhelm them with good value. So you may be thinking, okay, well then decompose and earth cards and banish is like the core of this deck. If I don't have a hero ability, it's not going to work. And that's actually not how it works out. I've had games where I wouldn't call it like truly low rolling, but it's like a little below average where I don't decompose until like turn 10, 15. Normally when I come online at like turn 5, that's like the gold standard. But I've had games where I don't come online until like the very end of the first cycle and still win. The differences here are with a deck like Jarl, who don't have a hero ability, versus Florian when you don't have a hero ability. It's like you have all these different tools at your disposal. So as Florian, I can still go Grasp and the Reaping Blade. I can still send Miltree, Grasp, and anything else for like a big Heckin' Arcane. I can do all these sorts of things without having my hero text to just make that extra little value. Whereas decks like Jarl really miss out on a lot when you're missing a whole chunk of the value of playing your cards. So the very first piece of advice I would give at Florian is don't get super hyper fixated on getting to 8 as fast as possible. Obviously, the earlier the better, but there will be games, especially into decks like Cindra, that keep you on the back foot for so long that you're going to be very slow to decompose, and that is totally okay. That's part of what made me love the deck. He is incredibly consistent even when he is inconsistent, and he just kind of is like a rock that does this thing over and over. So let's go through the hero, the weapon, the equipment. So we already talked about the hero itself. Reaping Blade. There's some debate here. I've tried Dread Scythe as well. I know some people are on like the wand that zaps arcane. I am a Reaping Blade believer after kind of trying all three of those, mainly because of this cost right here. The fact that it costs 1 resource for 3 physical is just a very, very good rate, and it's hard to pass up. It obviously pairs with our most core equipment, Grasp of the Arknight. A lot of the times where I'm going to pitch a blue, I'm going to pay 2, I'm going to make a rune chant, or if hero ability is online, I'll make 2 rune chants. And then with that 1 floating, I'm going to swing 3. So this is one of my favorite things in the game. It's a blue for a hammer for 4. Kind of. After a lot of testing, I've realized that it's a little bit weaker than a hammer for 4, but only a little bit, and only the decks that just love to pitch into the arcane, into pretty much any aggro deck, it's going to be the same deal. It's just a really good rate. And then when your heroes online is actually a 1-card 5. So it's really solid. Unfortunately, there is this text that says you cannot heal sometimes. That sucks, because we love to heal. We have 6 fruits. I'll come back to this. We have, arcane seeds here and there. We have the germinates in the late game that can be amazing if you get the heal and can be still decent if you don't. So our weapon saying you don't get to heal is not great. It is definitely the little bit of anti-synergy in this deck. So you'd say, well, why not run something like Dread Scythe? It's a 3 for 1 and 3. It still pings the arcane. It just takes the whole blue anyway. Yeah, you lose out on the chant, but like, you get to heal, and there is definitely merit to that. I do think Dread Scythe could just come in this list and replace Reaping Blade. You don't have to change anything else about the list, and it'll just work. Dread Scythe is really fun. It's really solid. But I think overall, when you're like really, really pushing the margins and getting that last little bit of effort, Reaping Blade kind of starts to outshine it, even with the anti-synergy. There are play patterns you can get into where you intentionally stay a little bit lower life than your opponent. That way Reaping Blade is not affecting you. There are plenty of times where, oh no, an all red hand where I cannot do absolutely anything. I'll block with 3 cards, pitch 1, send Reaping, or like block with 2, send Reaping, and Arsenal 1 and pass. So overall, Reaping Blade just ends up being the best cost curve for us. Even though there is this baked in anti-synergy, it sucks. It is what it is. It doesn't matter that much. So it's just the 1 for 3 rate is just really, really good. I do think if the Earth Runeblade weapon that launched in Rosetta was a 1 for 2 with no text, I would probably run that. But either way, this is our best weapon right now. Moving on to equipment. Of course, as I've already said, Grasp of the Arknight is absolutely core to this deck. It is going to be in every game you play, asterisk. Not Wizard. This is a bit of spice for me. We'll come back to this, but maybe other than Wizard. Otherwise, this is going to be in every game you play. It is so, so crucial. Your hero ability says you make extra tokens. This is the one thing that you can just make tokens on demand every single turn. It's an outlet for your shitty blues. It's just everything you want. It's so, so useful. And it's Battle-Worn 2. Battle-Worn 2 is amazing. So, Grasp, absolutely crucial for this deck. It's so, so good. Likewise, Barkskin of the Millennium Tree is also pretty damn core to the list. It's not as flashy or skill expressive as some of our older Earth things like Crown of Seeds, but it's still very, very powerful. This says when it defends, you make an embodiment of Earth token, which lets your non-attack actions block for +1 more. So of course, if your hero is online, you make 2 of these. Suddenly, your quote-unquote useless terrible blues like Warmongers and This Rounds and Oath of the Arknight and Germinate and anything that's not lining up well will block 5 plus the 1 or 2 from this. So, I'm a big proponent of holding my equipment as long as possible. Like, either make my opponent force it out of me in the mid game, or, oh, they didn't, I'm going to hold it till it's like 5-5, and then I'm going to use this equipment as leverage to close out the game. It works like a charm. So this in particular, into a lot of matchups, lets you keep a card in hand. A lot of extra fancy ways about it, but it lets you keep an extra card in hand. Instead of having to block this, like, let's just say CNC for 7, with 2 cards and like a grasp, this lets you block with the chess piece and 1 blue block 3 non-attack to cover up 7. That's huge. Or if they're going wide, but they're going to have 4s here and 5s there, you can block earlier on the chain link with just the chess piece, then block with like your attacks on the 3s, save your like 1 non-attack that you were lucky enough to draw for their big final attack. It's very flexible in how you block with it. It can be very, very powerful, but I do want to note there will be matchups and matches where you do not get the full value out of this. Do not look at this card like, oh, I have to get +2 block on this, +2, oh no, I'm not at 8 yet, I can't block with it yet. Do not get into that mentality. Obviously, that is the ideal, and it does work that way a fair bit of the time, but there are certain matchups, certain matches, depending on the deck, depending on how your opponent plays it, where you're just not going to get the extra value out of this, and it's just a temper 2 chess piece, which, let me tell you, just temper 2 on a chess piece is not bad. That's still saving a lot of on-hit just heartache. So into, for example, Cindra, where they're probably going to go like 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, and never really get to this like 5 or 6 as far as I can see coming. Of course, they have the cards in their deck, but you can't really predict it that much. A lot of the times, I will use this before I even have 4 in Banish, let alone 8, just to kind of help me prevent Mask and give me more value, even though it's blocking less. So I do like this equipment a lot. It definitely has this big macro discussion in terms of how to utilize it properly. I feel like it falls into that category of every game I'm like reading my opponent in order to tell how to use this properly. But overall, it's just pick your spot to block, and you block really well. Moving on to Face Purgatory, our default mainboard helmet. It says when you defend with this, a 2-block blade break, plus an attack, plus a non-attack, so you're usually blocking like 7 or 8. Then it forces the opponent to discard a card of their choice, and you draw a card of your choice. This is awesome. It's Flesh Bag with extra steps. Sometimes you like, oh yeah, this is a face purge turn. You look at your hand, you don't have both an attack and a non-attack, and it is what it is. Sometimes you're like 10 to 10 life, and it's still up, and you have the hand, and you go, well, better now than never, and you throw it at them anyway. So this is kind of a, I don't want to say inconsistent, but it's a bit of a rocky road with this helmet. It can be incredibly strong, or it can just, you know, line up whatever your hand tells it to and you throw it out. It kind of depends, but it's always going to give you good value. Getting that extra card off the top is good for like a Crown of Providence style, like, oh, I need an extra blue, let's see if I can rip it off the top moment. Even just like into something like Cindra, or if they're going like, you know, 1 into 3 and have 2 in hand or 1 in hand, you can block 7 on 3, replace the card that, or replace one of the cards that you blocked with, discard part of their card. It just ends up being a lot of value. Into stuff like Brute, it's obviously amazing because they're going for the 1-2 punch. And the Prism, same deal. If they're on Heralds, this is absolutely incredible. So it is our default piece because into the meta right now, it comes into most matchups, not every single one, but it is definitely the default now, even though I prefer Plume over it personally for personal style. It's very, very strong. Would definitely recommend running this card, and it gets you out of some really tight spots otherwise. And then lastly, of course, we have Well-Grounded. Not a lot to say here. It's Oldham D-React on a stick. It's really, really good in the current meta where everyone's running Shelters, and I'm on Haunting Rendition, and Prevention for Flick is very important. It's really good for attack reactions where you don't have a D-React in hand. It's just good in a lot of situations. Oh, Aurora's pinging you defensively to try and draw CLV with their cheeky D-React. You can just say no. With minimal effort, you just say nah. And the only thing you're losing is the ability to say no in the future. It's incredible. These leg pieces are amazing. So this is our suite. As you can tell, we have a lot of good blocking. We have Battle Worn 2, Temper 2 with extra blocking, Prevent 2 on demand, and Blade Break 2 that actually like disrupts them. So we have a fridge and a half. It's sweet. It's awesome. It lets us do everything we need to do. And it kind of gives us the space that we need where sometimes we really, really want to keep this 2, 3, 4 card powerhouse of a hand because you don't draw into them often or consistently, but when you do, they can be monumental. So that is the hero and equipment. Let's move on to the main board, the default. So here we see 54. This is not exactly my default main board. So for example, Miltree comes out into Prism exclusively, as suggested by Simon. Root Bounds and Sinks can sometimes come out into the matchups where you just like do not want D-Reacts. But overall, this is the core that in 90+% of my games, I'm running these 54. You can also take out Swarming into some matchups if you need to. But okay, so let's go through the list here. Some things will be more obvious than others, especially if you see my previous Florian list from the ProQuest season a couple months ago. But we're going to go through it anyway, just in case. So starting with Arcane Seed's Life, it says Earth, Runeblade type, it's core. It's amazing. This card's awesome. Sometimes you'll draw it when you are not online and you have a choice. You can either pitch it for late game or you can play it out now. Even if you play it out now, you get 2 rune chance and maybe a heal. That's a 3 value go again. This is sort of a read the runes with go again if you get the heal. Of course, when your hero is online, you make 4 rune chance and maybe heal, and you can get up to 5 value with Go Again, and it's monumental. But overall, this card is everything you want. It makes rune chance, it heals you some, it's a non-attack that blocks 3, it's earth typed, it's everything. You love this card. Same deal with Milltree. I briefly tried not running Milltree in the offseason. You gotta be on this card. It's amazing. Obviously, you don't really like play to Milltree being the core of your deck. There can be plenty of games where they don't give you the room to play it out, or plenty of games where you're sort of gambling on, I'll park it in Arsenal and see if I can play it out. Maybe I'll just like let it go to a CNC or something. Maybe I'll take a little extra damage because then I finally drew those 2 blues. It really depends, but Milltree is a powerhouse. It really helps with Enigma. It really helps with CYB. It really helps with decks like Jarl. It helps with a lot of really weird fringe matchups, and even in the decks even in the matchups where it's not like necessary as tech, it's still very, very good. Personally, after testing it both ways, I think that running more than Arcane Barrier 1 into Florian is a trap, and I think you just have to accept that if Milltree hits the field, you're taking unpreventable damage. Sorry, is what it is. Like, either play Shelter or something, or just take 3. It comes up pretty nicely. I killed one of my opponents in this Road to Nats with a double tree chant for 7 when he was at 3. It's a fun time. But like I said with Arcane Seeds, when this card does not line up, which is, again, fairly often, you can either cycle it back, or it's a non-attack that blocks 3. This is a recurring theme in our deck where, like, non-attacks that block 3 are really, really good with Barkskin, because you're going to have times where you just need that to be the clutch block in your hands. You can send something else. Of course, CNC is good. We're a mid-range defensive deck. We want to disrupt as much as possible, so that comes in the form of CNC, Felling, and Plow. So I was on like 2 and 2, I think, in the ProQuest season because I was starting to feel pretty down on them. But I think currently the meta is so aggro that being on 3, 3, 3 is absolutely crucial. So CNC, really, really nice. Of course, E-Strike, also fantastic. It's our main Go Again. I've had hands where I can close out the game by going like E-Strike for 5 Go Again, make 2 chance, 4 Go Again, 3. And they're like, wait, you're an aggro deck? And I said, for this turn I am. You can also, oh no, I had an all red hand. Oh god, because we're only on 27 reds, 27 not reds, maybe like 33 reds, something like that after we sideboard. So sometimes this is just a 2-card 7 on an all red hand is clutch. I personally don't really choose the draw mode because I don't like the randomness off of the top, but it can absolutely be very good if you've like done your math and you see, well, I've drawn a lot of blues, I bet it's more likely that there's a red on top, that kind of situation. Felling, of course, there's not a whole lot to say. This card's the best card in my deck. It's amazing. It's a 3 for 8. It decomposes, and it also bottoms a card from their hand. One thing of note against this card, do not just assume that bottoming a card from their hand is amazing, awesome value, because some decks can fatigue Florian. They are typically the CYB decks or just insane like weapon value decks, but there are certain fringe decks that can fatigue you. We'll get ahead to it, but this is why Poison the Well is in the list. I feel like CYB is my biggest weakness in that regard. So I've noticed that in those games where like I'm getting decked out, they're getting decked out, it's a long grind. This bottoming a card doesn't do a whole lot. It gives you momentum right now, but they're going to see that card again, and they're going to use it against you. So it definitely loses value in these super long, grindy games. It's still good. It's a 3 for 8, and it says Decompose. We still love it. But if the game is going to like cycle 3, cycle 4, and so on, be aware that you're losing value on the Felling and Plow effects of bottoming cards. Otherwise, of course, these are goated. They're amazing. They're disruption. You can't do anything to stop them. They decompose to get me online faster. Great cards. Moving on. Why are we on 6 fruits? Where's Red Autumn's Touch? This was a suggestion by Simon, as I mentioned earlier, where we said, well, the deck doesn't have that many 2 blocks. Like, we're on 12 in our 54. And that's including these 3. So if these were autumns, we'd be on 9 in our 54. So Simon and I agreed that you can up your 2-block count by 3 and not really be hurt by it. Obviously, there are times where you go, I wish this blocked 3. But more often than that, there are times where I either, oh, dang, I really want to play this Carapace, but I only have 2 Earth and Grave, and I really need 3, discard this. Or the opponent left me with an extra hand, or extra card in hand, but like multiple reds, I can't convert, so I'll keep the card in hand, make them think I'm going to Arsenal, and then Fruits Yum Yum and reactions before they take the damage. Again, because of Reaping Blade, you have to be aware of the Reaping Blade interaction. So it's just been Clutch as a extra form of healing, Clutch as an extra way to get cards and discard on demand, Clutch in terms of turn 0, just discard it, heal, or discard it, don't heal. It doesn't matter. So the useful situations for this card have outweighed the lower block because of the rest of the deck blocking so dang well. And I've been a big fan of this change, so would highly recommend converting red autumns to red fruits. I briefly entertained the idea of like, well, what if we had both? And no, it's just too much. We just don't need it. So I think the 6 fruits and only 3 autumns has felt like a good improvement in the deck to me. We do have the 3 red carapace, of course, as core to the deck. We have 2 yellow carapace in the sideboard. So I think into decks like Cindra or a lot of really heavy aggro pummel you in the face over and over decks where I just don't really get to play for a while. I can't send anything back unless I'm taking damage. That's when I bring in the yellow carapace. Now I have 5. Now I can just block, decompose, block, decompose. If I drew a couple early, it's okay now. Whereas in testing against decks like that, if I'm only on the 3 reds, it's not enough opportunities to decompose. It just isn't. My hero doesn't come online, which again, doesn't necessarily cost me the game, but it doesn't help either. So this is why I'm on 3 quote-unquote mainboard red carapace and 2 sideboard yellow carapace for when you need them, which I'd say they come in more often than they don't, for sure. Like, it's really nice to have them, but there are plenty of like slower or mid-range matchups where you just don't need this and you'd rather have some other stuff here. Sink below, same deal. We're mid-range defensive. It helps block. It helps filter. Something I've been thinking about this season is that it's very common for me to block with sink and not sink my card. I don't like going from I know what this hand does and it's decent enough to let's rip it off the top and see what changes. I don't like that variance and that maybe. Obviously, I'll sink to fix a hand when it just needs fixing. So I've thought about running like Fate or something instead of this because it's probably 2/3 of the time where I'm just not using the sink. But I think at the end of the day, the 1/3 of the time where I am using the sink is more valuable. That said, I do think Fate would be just as good, opting stuff like this to put to bottom. Swarming, also just really good. The other go again from E-Strike. You'll notice that we are not on Rune Rager Swarm. This is completely off of Rune Rager Swarm. So Swarming Gloomveil really fills that role of a 3 go again, usually a 4 go again. That just helps push damage. The third effect of like Unpreventable Arcane never ever comes up, but it is worth knowing, I guess. It's just, you need some go again, especially into things like Prism with any sort of board state, whatever. Plow Under, really good disruption. And then we just get to blues. Blues are pretty simple here. We love blue block 3 earth, we love blue block 3 earth, and we love blue decompose. I will talk about this slot in a second. We love Canopy Shelter because it's a block that gives us 3 value, 2 and 1, or 4 value if we make 2 might tokens. This is invaluable when, into Cindra, I'll block with this, make a might token or 2, and send Erase Face for 7 or 8, or I'll send CNC for 7 or 8, or like E-Strike for 9. It allows so many cool extra plays to get over the top, especially with the Erase Face, Weakest Link, like so many on hits that you're trying to disrupt with, that this card is awesome. The fact that it's a block and not a non-attack, so it does not get affected by embodiments, is a-okay. Again, we're so low on 2 block amounts that this is one that we're totally okay having because it just really gives us more defensive and offensive pressure at the same time. And as a mid-range deck trying to sort of pick and choose our pivots, this is really helpful. There are going to be times where you block with this and then they strip your whole hand and you're sad and you just let the might tokens go. But that's like maybe 1 out of 4 times or less. Overall, this card's really clutch. Germinate, of course, is just like one of the all-stars in the deck alongside Arcane Seeds. I've played this turn 0 and just won the game off of it. I've played this late game and just won the game off of it. I have blocked 5 with it because, again, it's an earth, non-attack, block 3, blue. It's like everything we love. It just does kind of whatever you need in every matchup. It's one of the big threat densities that I try and keep in the deck for as long as possible rather than just throwing out to block super quickly, because you will have these late game situations where, oh no, it's a long grindy game, maybe I'll go germinate into kill or things like that. So this card's very flexible, lots of different ways to play it. Again, I think Florian is more of a macro hero than a micro hero, and I think this card really encapsulates that with how you're cycling, or if you're blocking with it, or if you're just like arsenaling it. I think there's a lot of little micro decisions of how to utilize this card, and it can win you the game on the spot if it's used properly and if you draw it at the right time. Oath has been really clutch just to make an extra rune chant or 2 whenever I like have an all blue hand late game. They're like, oh, he can't convert his hand, so I'll like grasp and then play Oath and then swing sword for 4. Now we have 4 chants and 4 physical. I did at first really like this as well, making Reaping Blade 4 to swing on an angel into Prism. And then we quickly realized that if I make any chance and swing, so this would have 2 chance and sword for 4, and I target the angel with sword, she prevents 1 arcane with the angel being ward, takes 1 other chant because of the second chant, and then my attack targeting the angel fizzles. So what should have been like 2 arcane and kill the angel was actually just they took 1 and I pass. So it's still good, but maybe not the Prism tech I thought it once was. But this has been very useful, and of all the, like, obviously these 2 are tech. This one is not really tech per se. It's just like the next best one that isn't tech that we can run, and it's kind of hard to make an argument for it, but I do think it has been the most clutch out of everything I've tried, including like Sift and all these other weird blue block 3s. So I do like Oath a lot. This rounds is because it's such an aggro meta into like Cindra and Zen and everything like that. This is really, really valuable. Warmongers, I'm scared of Viserai. He's LL'd now, but during the whole season, Viserai was terrifying, and he was one of my worst matchups. And I've had people say that, well, Warmongers doesn't do anything. They just go peace and drop, drop, drop. And I'm like, that's fine, because that gives me a full hand. Obviously, it's not great, but I can now felling, or I can like seeds, bramble, like I can do things to say, no, please give me some of the cards of your hand, or take a ton of damage. If they go war, then they're not going to be making extra chance. And yeah, I'm still going to have to block a lot, but overall, it just helps a lot into Viserai. I don't really think I need it into Azalea. I think Azalea is probably a pretty easy matchup, but this was just like a fear check on Viserai. And lastly, Summer's Fall is like a kind of contentious spot. Overall, I do think Summer's Fall is the right card in this slot, but for a while it was Flourish, and I was also strongly considering going back to So tomorrow just because I love that card personally. Flourish did not work out well, especially into New, who would play Flourish from my Banish Zone, have the like Fang Strike attack reaction that's now a 0 for +3, and it would just hurt a lot, and it being a non-attack to block extra didn't really come up much. Whereas this being an extra decompose, I thought would come up more and then kind of didn't. So it's nice to have in that regard, but again, where it's back to the same line of like, yes, it's a 2-block attack, our like least favorite type of 2-block, but we have so few that we can afford it. So sometimes it's going to decompose. Sometimes you're going to run into 3 prisms in 9 rounds. I still don't understand it. And sometimes it's just, it's just going to be there as another blue earth that you can do whatever with. So I do think that this is like it could be other things, but at least for right now, Summer's Fall has felt the best, especially when you run into a lot of prisms. So this is my default board. We are maining 24 blues. I've seen a lot of Florians on 21. To quote Easton Douglas here in the Colorado scene on Team Ascent, I like to play consistent decks and then make them a little more consistent. So this is why I stay at a rock solid 24 for anything that isn't new. Overall, yeah, it's still just pretty standard Florian. Fruits has been extra good over Autumns. Let's move on to the sideboard. So sideboard's kind of all over the place. All over the place. Currently, I think this meta is a Wild West meta. Anything can go. So I said, I want to beat everything. I randomly lost to a Kano. Oh crap, what if I run into CYB? Like, no. If I run into anything, I can take it. That was my goal with this sideboard. So hence the 2-2-2-2-2-2-2. So we've already talked about some of these. Obviously, Erase Face is for the decks it hits. Weakest Links for the decks it hits. Summer's Fall is really good tech for the Illusionists. Haunting Rendition. This card I was a little taken back at first. It's like the one card that was in Mason's list that he sent me that I had not played with. And the more I played with it, the more I loved it. Because it is budget shelter, straight up. It's like better into Wizard. And otherwise it's budget shelter. It gets around CNC. But otherwise it's budget shelter. I cannot decompose it, so that kind of sucks. It's part of why I dropped it from 3 to 2. But when you have, well-grounded online, and you have 2 Haunting Rendition in your deck, ninjas cannot flick their daggers just willy-nilly, because they never know when you're going to have something like this to stop them. Then it makes 1 rune chant, or sometimes 2, so it's like icing on the cake. It's been fantastic overall. It's good into Aurora, just as like another 4 block, or it could prevent some spicy arcane. So it doesn't come in often, but it has been very, very clutch for those types of matchups where you would normally run Shelter or any 0 for 4 D-Reacts. Bramble is kind of just like the filler, if anything. It's very, very good into Illusionist or like slow matchups where you need to push damage. Of course, this card's like 100 or 0. You either draw it and you're like, oh my god, we're going to go like felling for ping 1 and 11 and bottom a card and like, woo! Or you draw it and you're like, oh, this card's useless. I cannot play this. And you slap it in an arsenal and you draw another one and you regret your life. This is why it's in the sideboard. I would usually use it to like, okay, put in this and this and that. Okay, we're at 58. go ahead and fill it out with Bramble Spark, if that makes sense. Because this is tech, this is tech, this is tech, this is tech. This is usually going in, but is mainly there for when I'm on the back foot a lot. This is tech for CYB, and this is tech for Wizard. So this is the only sideboard card that isn't just hard tech, but can go into pretty much any matchup and help. So I use it to round the edges. We've talked about all of these. Poison the Well. I think Florian's biggest weakness, at least in this form, is Count Your Blessings, or the type of like the Jarl deck I made where it's Sigil and Arcane Polarity, something like that with lots and lots of life gain, will fatigue you. You will get decked out. It can be close. You can get them down to single digits life, but they will deck you out until you run this card. Suddenly, when they heal, 3, 4, 5, they lose that much, and it becomes a 6, 8, 10 point swing on one card. So I have 2 of them, either to do that twice into something like Jarl, or into something like Verdance, where they might go, okay, Sigil heal 3, and I'll poison, and they go, okay, well, after poison resolves, in response, I'm going to play Fruits. Now I'll lose 2 life, and I say, no, in response to Fruits, second Poison the Well. Now they lose 2, now they lose 3, and the game is mine. So sometimes you need to combo 2 together in order for them to do what you want them to do. Sometimes you don't. This is definitely matchup knowledge and something to keep in mind. But 2 Poison the Wells worked great. I had not beaten my local Mac on a Jarl build very similar to my life gain video, because he just would fatigue me and I could get him down to like 5. So I showed up this past Thursday at Iron Lion's Weekly Armory, got him with Poison the Well, got my first win on him, and I said, okay, it works. And lastly, Seeds of Tomorrow. There's a big debate on this card. A lot of people love it mainboard, a lot of people love it sideboard. Generally, I do not. I think it's really cool, but I only have this for Wizard. It is exclusively Wizard tech. And I'm not saying this is correct. I'm saying this is my personal feelings and opinion. I do not like this card unless it is specifically to not get blown out by a Wizard. Equipment in the sideboard. We have, this is only for Wizard. This is only for Wizard. This comes into very specific matchups. So I played this into the Florian mirror. I grabbed Channel Military and I sent Military. I play it into... Oh man. Matchups I used to play it into have gone down lately. Like I used to play it into Prism, and that was one that Simon said, no, what are you doing? Play Face Purg. But I think the one matchup that truly, absolutely justifies this, and I hate to keep saying it, is Wizard. I think after life gain decks, our biggest weakness next is Wizards. So this, combined with Seeds, lets me play this as soon as I see it. So into Wizard, I'm going to take whatever card is left in my hand and windmill that crap in Arsenal, and I'm just going to let it sit there. It could be Canopy Shelter. I do not care. I just need something in Arsenal. So the moment that I see one of these, it's online. But then maybe they're mid-ranging. I don't know. I don't play much Wizards, so I'm going to wait until they send like 4 or 5 plus Arcane and just kind of sit on this. I'll IP with it for turn after turn if I really need to. But then eventually you want to play out the first one you see. Arsenal goes away, prevent 5. I can even AB more, so like, boom, prevent 8. Then they do it again, and you go, oh no, I haven't seen the second Seeds yet. This is where Plume comes in. You can pay 3. You can pitch a blue, return target Earth instant from graveyard to hand. So obviously this is instant. They can respond to this. So you really have to be correct with the timing here. But you can turn 1 blue in your hand into this being back in your hand. Instant speed. So the name of the game into like Kano is to just always have something in Arsenal. It does not matter what it is. If you play it out from Arsenal, immediately replace it so that Seeds is always online. You have AB3 with Vexing and Dyadic, but not Null Rune. We're still running well-grounded. So you have AB3, you have Plume and Seeds, and you have well-grounded to prevent 2. If this is not the whole arsenal against Wizard, I don't know what is. So this Vexing Quill hand, as we said earlier, only coming in for Wizard, only for this Arcane Barrier. I'm sure you could find a turn where you pop it for the chance. That's not the point. It is to have Arcane Barrier in the arm slot so that I can keep well-grounded in the boot slot and Plume in the head slot. That is it. So that's the sideboard. There's not a whole lot of maybe slots in this either. I talked about this being maybe Flourish or So Tomorrow. I talked about this being potentially Red Autumn's Touch. Obviously, there's some wiggle room here in the sideboard based on your local meta and such. Colorado just had like everything imaginable. I think our first 2 out of 4 RtNs, the top 8 was 8 different heroes. So this is why I said, no, I need to be able to play into the wide field. I'm not going to just roll the dice and see if I can dodge my bad matchups. But yeah, that is the deck list. If you have any questions, feel free to ask below. It's still pretty standard Florian, not a whole lot of frills, but it served me well. I mean, it took 4 RtNs before I actually did well. Kind of bubbled out of a few of them, got some like obscure matchups in some of them, but 9-0 speaks for itself. So, I mean, it's already pretty long into the video, but I guess I'll very quickly go through my RtN experience just as fast as I can. So here in the notes, we have round 1. I played against Matt in the Florian mirror. This is a matchup that we actually were going to play a couple weeks prior to different RtNs, and then we had a repair. I paired into Kano. I got wrecked because I didn't have the Seeds tech, and I bubbled at 10th. And it is what it is. So at advantage, round 1, he's like, we get to play the game now. Sweet. So we got to play it out. And I sit down and I'm like, cool. I'm Florian. I'm 163. What about you, Florian? He says, 72. Okay. Heard. So the advice I gotten, because I haven't really played the mirror a whole lot, but the advice I gotten was pitch all of your arcane for cycle 2. Send all of your physical cycle 1. So pressure them with Erase Face and CNC and all these like big physical threats where they're either going to like block out or they're going to leak some damage, and you get them down to 20. I also constantly was keeping my life lower than theirs so I could heal. So I ended up healing, I think, 4 that game and having to drop down to 1 life to be able to close it out. It was that close. So being able to stay below Matt was very important for the mirror. And then, like I said, pressuring with physical early and Arcane Cycle 2 really, really helped me out. I think I played 1 Miltree in Cycle 1 and then plumed it back in Cycle 1 and then had 2 more in deck for Cycle 2 where I close out the game with stuff like that. And Arcane Seeds. I definitely pitched like a double Seeds turn. So all that very useful. Round 2 into Marionette. Last thing I'll say about this, sorry, is that because I was on 63 and he was on 72, this whole plan of like playing for Cycle 2 and setting up not even a pitch stack, just a threat density of Cycle 2 with specific threats. I think I was able to cycle faster because I was presented 9 cards less, and that was part of what made me just lock into that game plan from turn 1. So moving on to round 2 against Marionette, this was Nick Wolf. It's one of the matchups I wanted to see for sure. It is definitely Florian favored until they just start going balls to the wall aggro. He did not do that, so I was able to block out efficiently. I had some pretty convenient and lucky answers whenever he did have some big pop-offs. So it was just a favored matchup for Florian where I also got a bit luckier than he did. Round 3 is when all my heartache begins. I was sweating against Matt in round 1. It was very, very close. But Prism is rough. This is the first matchup of the day I would say is like unfavored. In fact, it's the only matchup of the day I would say is unfavored. And I play into Michael Lau of Team Ascent, known killer in the scene. This man has top 8 callings. He's on the team with... I was intimidated as hell. And he's such a nice person too, and his wife Deb is amazing. So I'm sitting down like, all right, let's see how it goes, you know? And this is where I pause and I take a tangent. So my team decided the Tuesday before this weekend, this tournament's weekend, let's just do internal testing. Let's not go to the armory. Let's just like shore up our matchups, whatever. And I was in the mindset of, hey, you know, Florian is like rock solid. I'm going to test anything. Like I'm here for whatever you guys want to test. And my teammate Peter, who you may recognize from the Colorado 1K, the Tournament of Champions winner, said, you know what, Prism's kind of cool. I need to break from my usual stuff, which is like Assassin. Like, I want to play Prism. Who's available? And I'm like sitting over here like, hey, let's play. And the whole night we just jammed Prism Florian. And I beat him the first game pretty handily. And then Wes comes over and says, no, this should be easy for you. Hold on. Changes the whole sideboard, is like almost whispering in his ear, kind of is so funny. And they're like, okay, let's tag team this shit. So the 2 of them versus me, and they mollywop me, we run it back. They mollywop me, we run it back. I get there, but it's close. And we walk away, we're like, okay, that's a tough matchup. If they know what to do. Either way, it's a tough matchup for both sides, but damn. So what we discovered was that Aura's bad, Herald's good. The more that you just go aggro Herald into Florian, the more I'm going to struggle. Because you have the surprise buffs, you have the surprise -2 power to the blocker, so you can like cancel out poppers, so it can be really rough for Florian. Obviously, either one can win, but it is Prism favored, and the more Herald aggro focused they are, the more Prism favored it is. So cut to round 3, I sit across from Prism with this mindset of like, oh shit, unfavored matchup, but we'll see how they play it. And it's Michael Lau, the king of Prism. And his list is on a bit of a middle ground between Auras and Heralds. I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to have great commentary for these Prism games because Prism does so many flashy things and my brain is all over the place in the game that, in all honesty, I still don't fully understand how I won 2 of these 3 games. It's kind of miraculous to me. Michael had had Library out. He had the Angel of Erudition that I couldn't swing on because he would have like ALS or like random other stuff. He would refill Soul with like Soul Shield and Light of Soul. So there was about 5 turns where he would draw a 5-card hand, swing Erudition, have a 7-card hand, and just wail on me over and over and over. And this is where the beauty of Florian and his longevity really shines, is that I just weathered the storm. I'm thinking the whole time, oh shit, I'm losing, oh shit, I'm losing, oh shit, I'm losing, but you're holding on for dear life, trying to leak as little as possible. Finally, you're able to either kill the angel or they run out of soul, and you go, okay, please stop it. Would you kindly slow down and let me play the game? And they go, yeah, and you go, okay, I win. And again, I don't fully understand how that's the result, but it's a crazy, flashy matchup. I had a lot of fun. I somehow got there against Michael after all this. I'm like, okay, I'm lucky to be here. Round 4. Oh, cool, another Prism. This is Tegan, who you may recognize from the YouTube channel Flesh and Bad. If you have not checked them out, please go check out Flesh and Bad, the YouTube channel. A link to their channel will be in the description below, so you can just click on that. So I play against Tegan, and she's sort of similar to Michael in build, but also is playing it pretty differently. The thing that stood out to me the most this game, on my side of the table, was the absolute luck of the timing on Library. So you'll see my deck, I have 3 yellow Plow Unders, 3 yellows, and in my sideboard I have 2 Carapace, which I am running into Prism. So I have 5 total yellows in 60 cards. On like turn, I don't know, 4 or 5, Tegan drops Library, and I look at my hand and I have Plow Carapace. And I thank James White and the Flesh and Blood gods, and I get rid of Library immediately, like Emperor Nero. It was so satisfying. So she did not get this whole, like, just absolute wailing with 7-card hands over and over and over. Of course, she still had some good Erudition turns. Prisms always will. But it gave me more room to play the game, and that was absolutely clutch. By her own admission, she made a big misplay towards the end of the game by flipping, I believe it was Judgment Angel instead of Protection Angel. She says it was a super big misplay. Again, I have a really hard time evaluating Prism across the table, so I just take her at face value. I believe what she says. She obviously knows the deck very well and piloted it like a champ. Either way, I'm just grateful to get the win. Cool. Awesome. I cannot believe we went Prism win, Prism win. I think I'm locked now. Let's keep going, like, head down to the grindstone. Round 5, I play my buddy. I play Justin on Cindra. Thank God we're both locked, because it would feel really, really bad to get this close and knock one of each other out of top 8. But still, it sucks to play a homie, is what it is, and I'm favored too. But he put up a hell of a fight. Justin is a fantastic local who is, I would classify him as a jack of all trades. He's kind of bouncing around from various aggro decks a lot of the time. So I knew that he had like the mentality for Cindra, but maybe less of the reps than someone who had been playing Cindra for like a month. But of course it's Cindra. So she's pretty easy to pick up and play to some extent. He got me down to 1 life. It was very close, but I did end up taking it. Cool is what it is. I'm glad you're still locked. Fist bump. Let's move on. Stay strong. Round 6, I play against Porter on Cindra. This was probably my easiest game of the day, either Cindra or Marionette, because again, these are like 2 of my most favorite matchups. This is why I'm playing Florian. I think he has a really good matchup into the meta, and when I say that, I'm specifically talking about Cindra and Marionette. So I think I killed Porter with like 13 life left or something. He just didn't draw super hot. I drew a little better than average, and is already favored, so no sweat. Awesome, 6-0. I make top 8. I'm ecstatic. I did not expect to be here. Then we go to top 8, and I play Ian on Cindra, where I'm like, okay, I have first, second choice. I'm super favored. I've got this. My teammates are like, choose second for momentum, and I go, okay, I trust you guys. Sure. Hello, Ian. I'm going second. He's like, cool. On turn 0, he takes my entire hand and leaks 7 damage. I go to my first turn of the game at 33, and I'm like, holy crap, did I just lose this game? And do I not get my invite? Oh my god, holy crap. So I had to play it incredibly tight, whereas normally Cindra, I feel like you have this sort of wiggle room to work with where you can take damage here, take it there, except that things are leaking. And I went, I cannot do any of that this game. I have to be tight to get through this. Thankfully, I still got there, but it was definitely a different context from how Cindra games usually go, and it was stressful, and man, Ian was so nice. We were laughing the whole time. Absolute joy to play against, but everyone here in Colorado was awesome. But Ian left an especially good impression just from being, it was really fun to play against. So cool. I beat him. I got my invite. I'm incredibly stoked. More than anything, that's what I wanted on the day. I go into top 4, slip through the cracks. Now, I've played Solitary Confinement. I've won an RtN by forcing him in draft. I loved the hero when he was young, but that was a while ago. This was years ago. I have not played against Slippy since he came out. So I know the play patterns. I know generally in my head how I think it's going to go, but I have not played this matchup. I didn't tell him this. I was hoping that he also hadn't played this matchup because Florian's B tier or whatever. But similar to Cindra and Marionette, it's just kind of favored for me because by nature, he wants me to block certain ways, and by nature, I'm able to block certain ways more flexibly. So when he had the react, I would have another react or an answer. When he had the go again and didn't have the react, I'm like, cool, take no damage. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this other than that it just feels pretty Florian favored just by nature of the two heroes. And then finals. I pair back into Tegan. And I'm like, damn, I survived 2 prisms somehow. Cannot explain it. Another prism finals. Oof. And then Tegan calls me over and says, all right, so we're both exhausted, right? Our brains are pretty mush at this point. We've been here for 8 hours just playing out of our minds. She was like, what if we restructure prizing? This way, we both still try 100% to win this game, but we both get something. Second place gets the gold foil, first place still gets LL points and their choice of the 2 playmats. Let's still give it our all, big fist bump, but this way we both get something. Let's not get this close and then go home with nothing. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, sure. I mostly wanted my invite. Obviously, I want the LL points on Florian, since in the ProQuest season with my last video, I ended up splitting in the finals and giving the LL points to Mercy instead. But I kind of really wanted the LL points, and I have a couple gold foils that I'm struggling to sell anyway, so I'm thinking, well, I'm not favored. I'm probably going to lose and get a gold foil. Works for me, and then if I don't, I'm also stoked. So yeah, absolutely, fist bump, let's play it out. Then this led to a finals where we're definitely both giving 100, but in the context of, dude, we are exhausted. Our brains are mush. We've been here all day, so we're kind of sort of chatting with people. Not about the game state, but just in general, joking around, having a good time. But then okay, let's focus back up, really make the right calls here. And so it was a really fun and interesting finals. She did the same thing with library and erudition, just sending 7-card hand, 7-card hand. And I did the same thing of just weathering the storm and waiting for my chance to play the game again. I believe towards the late game, she ends up having to make sort of a put me on gotta have it, and I did have it sort of thing. And that was what ended up deciding the game. But overall, it was a lot of fun. In the finals, I really appreciated structuring the prize so that we still, it wasn't a predetermined winner, but we still, both walked away feeling like we won. Overall, it was an awesome game. Big shout out to Tegan for being an awesome opponent. And again, please check out their YouTube channel, Flesh and Bad. There is a link in the description below. So yeah, that's my run. I have some notes here that you're welcome to read anytime. This deck list will, of course, be linked in the description as well. But that was my day at Advantage Games. 48-person RtN. I somehow was lucky enough to go 9-0. I played quite a few favored matchups. I played the Florian mirror that felt like the Guardian mirror, so it sent me way back. I played 3 prisms, and I don't know how I came out the other side alive still. It was an awesome day. Other shoutouts I want to have. My boy Zephin was looking out for me. I told him in round 4 that, hey, I'm starting to get this brain fog again, lack of sleep. And he said, well, have you drank water? I said, you know what? No, I haven't. And I go to check, and Advantage is out of water. So my teammate Dan, holding the half Bjorn Thornton, the big jug of water, comes, no, open your bottle, pours me his, I drink it, I'm good, avoid the brain fog. So shout out to both Zephin and Dan. That really, really helped me stay strong throughout the day. Of course, thank you to Iron Lion for sponsoring the team, giving us support here in the Springs and to travel, and just in general encouragement. Thank you to the Colorado scene as a whole, because I would not be this caliber of player with this matchup knowledge and insight without the community being so damn competitive. It's crazy. Iron sharpening iron does not begin to describe the Colorado scene. We have so many Team Ascent members that are like top 8ing Worlds, finals in Worlds for Mercy. We have people like top 8ing Callings. We have people of such high caliber that even like the more casual players have really raised their game a lot, and it forces everyone to be on a better game into each other, while also everyone here being so kind and supportive and loving. And it feels like such a nice community of both tight-knit, kind people, but also straight freaking killers in this game. And I love the Colorado scene, and I'm so grateful to everyone here and to Advantage for hosting the game, man. Joey, the judge at Advantage, was running around all day like a chicken with his head cut off because there were so many more judge calls than I've seen at these events normally, and he killed it. There were 0 issues all day, so I'm just really grateful for the scene, and I'm grateful for you watching this video and staying through to the end. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments below. I'll check them out. Please check out Flesh and Bad's YouTube channel as well, and Ironline Collectibles online. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.